Welcome to Reading the Gospels Together for May the 11th, and today we're reading the first half of Mark chapter 15, verses 1 through 32. Now, in these 32 verses, more or less a single page in our Bibles, Mark is telling us a lot, not only in terms of what's happening, but the different levels upon which they are happening and why. And our job today is to unpack those various levels. Level number one is the simple recounting of historical fact, what's happening on the surface. Now, the temple hierarchy has framed Jesus in a hasty overnight trial in order to get rid of him before the city awakens and the sympathetic crowds begin to stir. To deflect blame from themselves, they bring him to Pilate. If the crowds want to be angry with Pilate for doing away with this troublesome but popular Galilean, they can go ahead. Pilate is already roundly hated anyway. Now, while the Sanhedrin has accused Jesus of claiming to be the Messiah, the Son of God, and so in their eyes a blasphemer, they bring him to Pilate on charges of sedition, of claiming to be king. Pilate could care less about some peasant claiming to be the Messiah. Claiming to be king, though, is a capital offense against Rome and would have to be responded to. Now, Pilate knows there's something fishy going on. He's done a bit of unpacking himself. And so perhaps in order to antagonize the temple hierarchy and to show them he can't be so easily used, he offers the decision to the crowd. Shall I release Jesus or this murderous rebel Barabbas, he says, following the tradition of releasing a prisoner on Passover. But the temple officials have worked the crowd, likely telling them that if they really want to annoy Pilate, they should ask for Barabbas. Now, Pilate asks them what he then should do with Jesus, but the crowd has been prepared. Crucify him, they repeatedly cry. Now, why? Aren't these the same people who were hailing Jesus as Messiah just a few days before? Well, remember that Mark is describing all of this as taking place very early in the morning. Why is there a crowd gathered in front of the Praetorium at daybreak? It's the final day of preparation for Passover. Anybody up and around at this hour on this day would be buying food and supplies for the Passover celebration, not hanging around police headquarters. The crowd must have been arranged and prepared by the temple authorities. Now, lots of sermons, including my own, have said, "The same crowd which hailed him as Messiah now cries, 'Crucify.'" But I'm guilty there of making assumptions. Why would it be the same crowd? No one knew that this was going to take place but the temple authorities who had arranged the arrest and the trial under secrecy. I have to believe they've arranged this crowd as well. Now, Pilate, fed up with it all, hands Jesus over to be flogged in preparation for the crucifixion. That's the way things were done in this harsh and cruel world of Roman justice. And the soldiers have their fun, mocking the so-called king and humiliating Jesus further. But next we have an astonishing detail. Weakened by the beatings and flogging, Jesus is unable to carry the cross through the steep Jerusalem streets. A passerby is forced into the story. Mark describes him as a certain man from Cyrene, Simon, father of Alexander and Rufus. Not any man, a certain man. Mark knows him by name. He knows his sons' names. So does Mark's audience, or why mention them at all? Simon, following this terrifying ordeal, must himself have become a Christian along with his family. Luke even mentions Simon in the book of Acts, and Paul mentions Rufus in his greeting to the Roman Christians in Romans 16. Here's another eyewitness to the events of that day. Now, the crucifixion takes place just outside the Garden Gate on the northwest corner of the city, at a former quarry repurposed as a burial ground called Golgotha. The wine and myrrh they offer is a sedative, which Jesus refuses, having said he would not drink wine again until his coming kingdom. By the time all of this is accomplished, it's only 9 a.m. Jesus will spend 6 long hours on the cross. As per the custom, his crime is posted on top of the cross, King of the Jews. Pilate has instructed that this be written as an insult to the Jews, most likely. While on the cross, Jesus is subjected to the insults of the spectators. That's the blow-by-blow account of the events. But there's another level. Jesus is accused of claiming to be the Messiah. He's also accused of claiming to be king. But he's also being revealed by all these events to be the one who will suffer and be sacrificed on behalf of the people, the suffering servant foretold by the prophet Isaiah. This is not the Messiah or the King that the people expected, but it is the one that Isaiah foresaw. Read Isaiah 53 and then go back and read this first half of Mark 15 again. You'll see that another drama is being played out, the salvation of the world. All of the details fit: the silence in the face of accusation, the rejection, the suffering, the flogging, the crucifixion itself, his death and entombment, but even his resurrection and victory. Isaiah saw it all. Now Jesus, as he intimated at the Last Supper, is the final Passover lamb, the one whose sacrifice will be offered once and for all for the sins of the world and the deliverance of the people from captivity to sin and the power of death. The true temple and source of salvation, the living temple, Jesus, will be torn down, but will rise again in 3 days. That's the other level. Now, the drama is set out in the prophecies of Isaiah. Psalm 22 completes the script, and the temple hierarchy and Pilate unwittingly bring the production into reality. And that's the other level still. This is no random event. This is the thing for which Jesus has been preparing. From the moment Peter realized who Jesus really is, the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And from that moment, Jesus told them exactly what would happen. 3 times he had said, "We're going to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him and spit on him, flog him and kill him, and 3 days later he will rise." Now Luke began his ministry by tying himself to the book of Isaiah way back in Nazareth. Luke tells us this in Luke 4. Jesus went to Nazareth where he'd been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And Jesus said to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing. In your hearing." And with this crucifixion, Isaiah 53 is fulfilled as well. We'll see more of that happen tomorrow. In preparation for tomorrow, read the last half of Mark 15, but take time to read Isaiah chapter 52 verses 13 through Isaiah 53:12. As well, read Psalm 22. Jesus had quoted the Psalms more than any other Old Testament scriptures. He knew them by heart, and now he was living them and dying with their words in his mouth. We'll see you tomorrow.